Well, welcome everybody to this month's Idea Lab. Last month at our annual awards banquet, we enhanced the event with some videos of our members and a little bit of history about the Chamber. We had so many positive comments about the videos, people asking who had done them and how we got them done, that we decided to invite our guest today, Brian Chambliss from Plugged In Productions, to share a little bit about some ways that we can make videos on a budget. So Brian, I'll let you take it from here.
All right, can everybody see my screen there? Yes, perfect. Hi, well, thank you for coming. Before we get into this, I want us to answer a question. And that question is, why should I care about creating quality video content? Does anybody have any ideas as to why we should care about creating quality video content?
Because it's a representation of us or our business.
Absolutely. That is certainly one reason why. Does anybody else have any ideas?
Hi, this is Judy. Sorry, I'm driving. So I find it very difficult to focus on the actual message if the video doesn't have to be perfect, but it certainly needs to be for quality enough that the actual video and audio don't distract from the message.
That is 100% correct. So both of those answers are very valid. I have a different answer though. And before I give my answer, I want to give you some online video consumption statistics. So first, 244 million Americans watch video content on a weekly basis. 82% of all consumer internet traffic consists of watching video content. I found that stat to be pretty shocking. The majority of bandwidth is dedicated to people consuming video content on the web. 98% of users 18 to 24 view online video content every single day. 84% of people say they've been convinced to buy a product or service by watching a brand's video. And finally, the average internet user spends nearly 7 hours a week watching online video content. I know I spend a whole lot more than that, but the average person spends 7 hours a week. So I have another question. How many minutes of video are uploaded to YouTube every hour? Does anybody have any guesses? And this is just YouTube. This isn't Instagram, Facebook, or TikTok.
It's got to be in the thousands, I would think. Thousands of minutes.
Thousands of minutes. That's pretty close, David. So every hour, 45 million minutes of video are uploaded to YouTube.
Wow.
And again, that's just YouTube. That doesn't include TikTok, Instagram, or Facebook, okay? So this stat tells us two things. The first is that inexpensive electronics have democratized the act of creating video content. What used to be a very expensive endeavor has turned into something that anybody with a cell phone can do, right? The other thing it tells us is that there is a lot of hot garbage out there. Of that 45 million minutes that's uploaded every hour, the vast majority of it is crap. And so why should I care about creating quality video content? This is why. Because there's so much static that your customers and your audience have to sift through to get to your video content. Making your videos as good as possible is going to help them find it. So that is why we should care about creating quality video content. So my name is Brian Chambliss. I'm the owner of Plugged In Productions. I've been producing video content professionally since 2008. I've worked with a whole bunch of companies in a whole bunch of different industries, but just to name a few, I've worked with AT&T, Gates Rubber, the Colorado Rockies, and Champ Automotive. And I've been fortunate enough to travel all over North America and Europe doing this. And it's been a really rewarding and wonderful career. So video is an amazing art form, and it's my favorite art form because it's the only art form where you can incorporate every single other art form to create the medium. So you can have poetry and design and illustration and music, and you can take all that and you can create a video out of it. And that's what makes it so dynamic, and that's what makes it the most popular way to communicate with your customers online, is because of how dynamic it is. So when I was putting this workshop together a couple years ago, I ended up signing up for a longer day workshop that was geared towards the same group of people. And I thought that the amount of information they went into was too much, right? Too much detail. Nobody cares about how ISO interacts with your aperture, how it interacts with your, your camera frame rate settings. So I took what I think are the most important things that you can do either free or cheap, and you can implement those to create your video content. So that's what we're doing today. And then if anybody has any questions as we go through this, just hop in. I like to make this as interactive as possible. So here's our class roadmap for the day. So section 1 is going to be production tips, and this is going to be best practices for filming your videos. Section 2 is going to be post-production tips, and this is going to be best practices for editing your videos. Section 3 will be general thoughts, and this will be how to make the most of your time creating video content so you're not spinning your wheels. And number 4, if anybody has any questions at the end, I can answer them there as well. So section 1 is going to be production tips. So tip number 1, one person at a time. Does anybody have any thoughts on this video?
There's
White
a
side-
lot going on, and it's hard to focus on who we should focus on.
Yeah,
Dave?
yeah, that's what I was gonna say.
That is exactly right. So the frame isn't balanced. There's no obvious place for my eye to go, right? There's a lot going on and it's hard to focus. The other problem with this, and I'll have companies tell me, they'll say, hey, Brian, both founders are in the office on Tuesday. We'd really like to get them both on camera. And I try and steer them away from that because undoubtedly one of them is going to look awkward because they both can't talk at the same time. So instead of taking multiple people and putting them in the frame at the same time to film them together, what I recommend is film everybody individually, right? And when you do that, you can get this. The frame is more balanced, it looks more professional, it's more dynamic. You're going to be able to tell a more interesting story if you film everybody separately and edit them together, right? So instead of filming people together, film them individually and then edit them together to make a really awesome video. Tip number 2, and I know this probably sounds obvious, but I see people not do this all the time. So level tripod. When you're filming your interviews, I would highly recommend getting a tripod. They're inexpensive. You can get them for pretty cheap, but every tripod has a little ball level on it. So when you're setting it up, make sure it's level, because if it's not level, it looks like this. And it's a little disorienting. It kind of is makes me a little nauseous to look at. So when you're filming your interviews, make sure your tripod is level and it'll look awesome. Tip number 3, microphone. So as I go through this presentation, you're going to find out how important I think audio is. And I think this is how important I think it is. If you offered me the choice between having an amazing picture quality and bad sounding audio versus amazing sounding audio and bad picture quality, I would take amazing audio every day of the week. I think it is the most important part of your productions, right? And people, I think it surprises people to find out because you think of video as such a visual medium. But I'm telling you, the audio is the most important part of your videos. So getting good, clean audio feeds is going to be very, very important. And what you can do, if you're going to spend money on one piece of equipment, I would recommend getting a little wired lapel microphone. You can get one for your phone. You can get them for whatever camera you're using. And basically what it does is it sits here right at the top of their shirt and it'll make the audio quality so much better. And you can get them for like 60 bucks. So it's not a super expensive investment. So I have an example here. So the first half of this next clip, you're going to be able to hear what audio just sounds like with the internal microphone on the camera. And then halfway through, you'll hear me switch to the lapel microphone that I have on our shirt. And tell me if you can hear the difference.
Before, when we were just creating quick social media videos that weren't produced by an expert, they didn't have as high as engagement. So now we have more likes, comments, shares, things like that.
Did anybody hear the difference? Yeah, it's a pretty massive difference, and it makes a big difference in the way your videos are perceived. Somebody at the very beginning mentioned how, making sure that you're communicating the right message in the right way, it reflects on your company and your products and your services. And this is one way that you can really boost production quality for not a lot of money. So when you're going through your videos, make sure the audio quality that you're getting is really good, and your videos will be a whole lot better. Yeah, what's up,
Brian,
David?
You said that you can get videos or mics like that for even if you're doing video off your phone.
You sure can. And it depends if it's iPhone or if it's a Samsung or whatever, they're a little bit different. But if you are just type in whatever phone you have in Google, say iPhone 11 lapel microphone, it'll bring you up a bunch of products on Amazon
Options.
that will, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And even the really, really cheap ones will sound better than just using the internal microphone on your camera or on your phone. All right, tip number 4 is lighting. So when people think about lighting, they think about Hollywood and they think about spending thousands of dollars on lights, right? But you don't need to do that. As long as you know how to work with your surroundings, you can use natural light to your advantage without spending any money on it, okay? So I'm going to break this section up into 2 parts. So there's going to be interior filming and there's going to be exterior filming. So either filming in your office or outside. So the first one that I want to talk about is interior lighting. Does anybody have any thoughts on this clip?
It's shadowy. Makes her look a little tired.
Sure does, doesn't it? It is not very flattering light. So I see this a lot. So office lighting is not very good in general. I'm generally kind of grossed out by office lighting, not even for video, just for in general. But so she's sitting directly underneath an overhead fluorescent right now. And what it's doing is it's creating what was called raccoon eyes, where the light source is coming from right above you and your eye sockets will create a shadow, right? It's not very attractive. She doesn't look very good. And so this next clip, all I did, this was 2 seconds of investment to get the difference between this and what you're going to see. I turned off the overhead fluorescent and I opened the blinds on the window that were behind me. And when we do those 2 things, which again took me 2 seconds, you get this. Look how much nicer she looks. She looks younger, she looks healthier. It is a vast improvement over the other one. And here's what they look like side by side. So again, utilizing the natural light in your office is going to make a huge difference. So what I would tell you to do is find a window, put your subject in front of it, turn off all the lights in the office, and you'll be able to get what's on the right. And it'll look a whole lot better. Next section is exterior lighting. So I'm going to give a quick caveat here. I hate filming interviews outside. It's hard. The conditions are changing. The sun is coming. The clouds are coming. It's windy. Undoubtedly, somebody's going to start mowing their lawn. It's a lot to contend with. But I realize that sometimes it's unavoidable. I do a lot of stuff in the construction industry. And so we're on job sites all the time. They're very noisy. It's challenging, but sometimes you have to just roll with the punches. So if you are outside, there's a tip that I can give you with lighting that will make a big difference. Anybody have any thoughts on this clip?
She's squinting.
She sure is. She's not
Looks a
thinking.
little washed out too.
And that's exactly right. She's squinting and she looks washed out. So the problem here is outside of the fact that it looks bad, she's not thinking about her answers. She's so concerned with her retinas being burned up by the sun that she can't answer the questions, right? So I would say that is the biggest problem with this. And when people set up lighting outside, the logical assumption is that you want to make it so the sun is in front of your subject, right? I think that's what most people think. To me, that would seem like the obvious thing to do. You want to illuminate your subject's face, so put them in front of the sun. So this next clip, all I did was I rotated the set 180 degrees. So now the sun is behind her and I'm shooting towards the sun. And when we do that, we get this, right? She's not squinting. She's not washed out. She's thinking about her answers. And this clip also illustrates my original point about not wanting to film outside because the wind, it was windy and it's hard. And so if you can avoid it, I would. But if you do have to film outside, make sure the sun is behind your subject and film them that way, and you'll get a great product. Here they are side by side. All right, tip number 5, rule of thirds. And has anybody heard of the rule of thirds? You could just raise your hands if you have. So the rule of thirds, it is a guide, and it's a composition guide for both photography and video. And so if you've ever seen this grid on your phone or on your cameras, what the rule of thirds says is that there are 4 main points of interest in the frame. And where those lines intersect are where you want to position whatever your point of interest in your frame is. It's kind of hard to explain. So I found a video online that I think does a pretty decent job. So let's watch that really fast. And then we will go over how to apply that to the interviews that you'll be filming in your offices.
Overlaying the rule of thirds grid makes it easy to see. There are 2 horizontal lines and 2 vertical lines that are all equally spaced. We can apply this rule and the grid to any shaped image. The best way to learn this rule is by turning on the grid in your camera or your phone settings. This will add a grid so you can easily see the lines when using your camera. And the most important part is this section and this section right here, especially when we're filming people, but can apply to anything with a point of interest in our image. And once you start to understand this rule, you will start to see this absolutely everywhere. So why is this rule important? Well, it's all about the composition and what's going on in the frame. If the main subject is centered right in the middle of the image, it can seem quite staged and possibly too symmetrical, and subconsciously the viewer's eyes don't really go around the frame and it just kind of seems quite unnatural. As a videographer or a photographer, we're always trying to portray something in our images, whether that's emotion or a point of interest. And if we place that point of interest to one of these 2 sections, the viewer's eye is automatically drawn to it and the image seems quite natural. A perfect example would be a shot like this, where the subject's eye is right on that cross section, so the whole image becomes quite natural, is well balanced and pleasing to the viewer's eye. But notice the angle, I'm actually looking into the frame. If it was an interview, I'd be looking just off camera into the frame, not out of the frame, because this just seems really awkward. But remember, rules are made to be broken. So when we start to position the subject in different areas of the frame, you can really start to portray different emotions. Having Holly in the bottom cross sections, we really emphasize how small she is compared to the big vast landscapes around her.
So that's the rule of thirds in a nutshell. So we have this grid. How do we apply that to filming the interviews that we're going to be doing, right? So first, here's an example of something that I see happen all the time. So I will see this. People who either take photos or video, they will place their subject's head center frame. I would argue that this doesn't look very good. It doesn't look professional. It doesn't look balanced. It looks like an amateur composed this frame, composed this shot. So when we apply the rule of thirds grid to this shot, we can see that our interest point of this is her talking, is her face basically. And really, to be specific, it's her eyes. So following the rule of thirds, our point of interest doesn't intersect with any of the lines on the grid. So how do we make this, how do we change this? So if we were to compose this shot to follow the rule of thirds, it would look like this. It looks more professional, it looks more balanced. You're going to get a much better quality of video if you follow the rule of thirds for your interviews. And if you're doing multiple, you can alternate sides, right? And that makes it adds another level of dynamicness to your edit. So when you're composing your interviews, follow the rule of thirds and it'll look a whole lot better than if you don't. All right, section number 6, background. I really love this section. And why I love this section is because it illustrates a point that I think is very important that people don't think about. Every single part of your production communicates something. It communicates something good or it communicates something bad, but every choice you make on what to include, what not to include, it says something about the story. So to prove that point, you're not going to hear the sound in any of these. Can anybody tell me what this video is about? Nope. It's a plain white wall. I have no idea what it's about. Gives me no clues. This could be a video about anything, anywhere, at any time. What about this? Does anybody know what this video is about? Nope.
Bad son.
It's a video on bad lighting and composition and background is what it is. So we have no idea what this video is about either. What's this video about?
Construction.
That's right. Construction. What about this one?
Sports.
Sports. Specifically, that's a soccer game going on behind him. But yes, something about sports, something about athletics of some degree. So when you're composing your shots, you know, we got to worry about lighting and audio and everything, but make sure that the background of your video is telling the audience what you want it to tell it. So take time to make sure that it's communicating the same message that you want the rest of the video to communicate. All right, number 7, don't interrupt. What do I mean when I say this? I'm going to play this clip and then you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
So one of the benefits of producing good quality video is that we're really able to take that video footage and share it on social media, with the news media, on our website.
That's exactly right.
And then we're able to also showcase our projects and our people to that larger audience.
I think that's good. So I see this a lot too, and it creates a problem. So let's say we had been filming all day and that was the best take that she gave of every take that we had. I can't use that. I can't use that because my voice is in the background. It's natural when you're talking to somebody to want to communicate verbal and non-verbally with them, right? When you're interviewing somebody, you can communicate non-verbally. You can nod, you can make eye contact, but wait until they're done talking to either ask them a question or whatever else. That way you can ensure that you're not ruining any takes as you go throughout the day. Trust me, it's happened to me a million times for one reason or another, and it's a huge pain when you have to abandon a take because some noise came in during the answer and you can't use it. All right, section number 2, post-production tips. Tip number 1 is going to be software on this. I don't know, has anybody here had experience creating video content before, either editing or filming?
Hi, this is Judy.
Yeah.
I've done, they're pretty amateurish, but I did a series of videos, home improvement stuff, how to use a circular saw, stuff like that. So that was actually going to be one of my questions when I'm the subject and I'm self-videoing, and well, I'm not the subject, I'm the one speaking, but what I'm addressing maybe is something in front of me. It's difficult for me on the audio side of things to manage that, which we could talk at a different time. And then I just recently found a relatively inexpensive editing software where I could put sound separate from the video, or I could put music behind something that didn't have words, and it's called Filmora. It was not too bad to learn how to use, but I didn't know, I only spent like $80 for a version I could download and keep. So it wasn't the end of the world, but I didn't know if you had something maybe that was easier. So the answer to your simple question was yes. And then I thought I'd throw my 2 questions in there.
Well, so Judy, Filmora is great. I've never used it, but I've heard great things about it. And your other question, let's answer that one at the end. Cool. So keep that one in your back pocket.
Yes, that's fine.
So there are a whole host of editing suites that cost money, anywhere from, in Judy's instance, $80 all the way up to thousands, whatever. It depends on what you're doing. But I would argue for most people, just getting a basic free editing suite is going to serve them just fine. And so I have 2 options here. So if you're on Windows, VSDC is a free editing platform that you can download from Google. And if you're on Mac, you can use iMovie, which is a pretty powerful tool. And I think it either comes pre-installed or you install it through the App Store. One way or another, it's free. So it comes with your Mac software. And either one will work just fine. All right, remember at the beginning how I talked about how important audio is? Music is so important. I remember a while back, a friend of mine sent me a wedding video that somebody had done, and I'm not super keen on watching wedding videos. It's not something I go out of my way to find, but I loved this video, and I sent it to another buddy of mine. And I was like, man, I don't know what it is about this video that I love so much. And he says, it's the music. You love the music. And I was like, yes, you're right. I do love the music, and it makes the video awesome. So music can take a video that would be normally boring, and it can make it interesting. And the inverse is true as well. You can take an interesting video and ruin it with bad music. So this next example, I have 3 different music options, and the visual for each of these videos is the exact same. It's the exact same edit. So I want you to see how much music tone can affect the tone of the video, because the edit is the exact same. They're identical between these 3. So let's go ahead and listen to this first one here. So that's option one. It's pretty intense, right? It's a pretty serious track. So I think it communicates strength. So actually, this is an exercise I went through with this client, right? So I gave them a couple of different options of music tracks to kind of figure out which tone they wanted the video to have. I named this concept execution. So it's very serious. It's very strength filled and stable, right? So here's the next option. Same edit. A lot different tone, right? I think that's a warmer track. It's more beautiful. So I named that concept humility. And I think that track does a good job of communicating that. All right, so you've heard the first two tracks. What do you think about this track? I don't need to play much of that one. I mean,
It's terrible.
terrible, right? It doesn't, the other two tracks, they meshed. I just felt like they went together. I think both tracks worked with that video, with the visuals on the first one. It's like oil and water, that one. So again, you could take a good video and ruin it with music. So as you're going through picking music, take your time. Since I think music is so important, there's 3 more tracks I want to listen to, and I want us to think about what types of videos these could be used in. So here's the first one. Oops. Anybody have any ideas on that track? It's more youthful, right?
I kind of see like an aerial shot or like a drone shot of someone like on a climbing wall, or, you know, maybe it's kind of like some mountain biking shots on a trail.
You bet. Absolutely. That would work great in that kind of video.
I thought sports or some kind of sport activity. So it's very similar to that. Yeah.
So actually, David, that video, the construction background and then the soccer background. So I used that song in the soccer video.
Yeah.
So I think it works great. It would work great for anything that needs a little bit of youthful energy. And I think a sporting video would be great. So here's number 2. Anybody have any ideas on that one? What would that be used for?
Medical.
Sure.
Yeah. Like
You
a
bet.
walking through the hospital, or like close up of, you know, someone helping a patient.
Sure. Absolutely. You could certainly use it for that.
It made me think of either technology or water.
That's right. So all these tracks that I'm showing you I've used in productions, and we use that in a technology video. It's a little more mysterious. There's a little more intrigue involved with that sound, and I think that would work great for any of the examples that were given here today. All right, we have one more. Tell me what you think this should be used in. Any ideas on what that could be used for?
Like a setup of a band, you know, like where you do time lapse.
Sure, absolutely. I could work for that really well.
I thought it kind of sounded like mobilizing, people
Sure.
going out, mobilizing.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it could work in like a nonprofit video. Actually, we use that. One of my clients, one of my construction clients, they built this big children play set thing. And I used it for that video. So yeah, it's like, you know, it's kind of like kid-like or it's youthful. So I think anything that has it has a happy tone ultimately. So anything where you want to communicate happiness, those songs would work for that. So with music, when I first started doing this in 2008, there really wasn't that much of great stock music online. And if it was great, it was very expensive. But man, that has changed a whole lot. There is a ton of really great stock music that is really pretty cheap. I mean, you can get subscriptions to websites for $100 a year. You can buy tracks individually. So there's it's the same problem that we have with trying to cut through noise, right? It takes time to find it because there's so much out there. But I'd rather have to spend more time looking because I know there's a great track there than not have enough. So when you're looking for music, take your time and you'll find the right one. And you'll know when you find it too, because it'll just speak to whatever your concept or story is.
Hi, this is Judy again.
Yeah, Judy, go ahead.
Game comes with a bunch of preloaded music tracks like that, which is really nice because then you can speed them up, you can slow them down, you can stretch out the tones. It's actually pretty amazing for that inexpensive of a piece of software.
There you go. You could use, so what was the name of your software that you used, Judy?
Filmora.
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 That's awesome.
That's
Yeah,
not-
you could.
That's not the actual company though. I can't recall. I'm not at my desk, so.
Well, yeah, that's amazing. For $80, you get access to some preloaded music. So that's really great. And that would be a really great asset to have. So post-production tip number 3, stay away from stock transitions and effects. And I know what it's like. You get into a new piece of software and you learn enough of it to start tinkering around with all the little bells and whistles that you put on there. And it's really tempting to start using that stuff and put it in there. I'm going to tell you to not leave all that stuff alone because I am not great at creating PowerPoints. And as I was going through the software, guess what I found? I found all the stock transitions. You know, it's like, perfect. Stay away from stock transitions. So pretty simple. Simplicity, simple is better, clean is better. So you can just basically ignore all the little bells and whistles in whatever editing platform you're using. I promise you it'll work out better.
Brian, is there
Go ahead.
is there an exception to that with the fade, or do you don't think the fade is good either?
So that's David, thank you. I forgot to mention that. So there are 3 transition types that I use, and I use them all the time. The hard cut, which is you're basically going from clip A to clip B with nothing in between it. It's just a hard edit, right? So that's the most common type of transition you'll find. 2 would be a dissolve, just a short dissolve that basically dissolves the 2 between each other. And then you can also do a fade to black and then come back up. So you're right. Those are the 3 types of transitions that I use. And those are the only transitions that I use. Unless I'm trying to be intentionally silly, which I don't think any of you will be with your videos, I would stay away from the majority, except for like a short dissolve or a fade. Thank you, David. So post-production tip number 4, keep your videos short. So I'm gonna give you all some truth right now. And you may not like it, but it is the absolute truth. Keep your videos short. Why? Because nobody cares about your product or service as much as you do. Nobody. And I know that's hard because I have clients, they're like, oh, we manufacture little widgets for iPhones, and we really want to do an 8-minute long video about our manufacturing process and how we engineer these pieces of equipment. Nobody cares. At least nobody cares for 8 minutes worth of video content. So learning how to edit, and Carol knows this, she edits all the time. Editing is your friend. Making sure that you're removing, you basically want to communicate exactly what you want to in the shortest time possible. At least that's the case with commercial video content. And if you don't believe me, the next time you see any ad ever on TV, on YouTube, anywhere, tell me what you think of that ad, and that answers the question. If people, they just don't care, right? So keep your videos short, and that's the lesson. The shorter, the tighter you can keep your videos, the better the chance that people are going to watch it, because I'm much more willing to watch a 60-second video than a 15-minute video on whatever. So I generally try and keep my videos to 90 seconds. And so I have a 90-second video. This is actually part of the campaign, was doing various topics in construction in 90 seconds. And so I'm going to show you what 90 seconds looks like.
Construction can be incredibly complex, from managing thousands of people on a single job site to making sure buildings meet their owners' requirements. Technology has come a long way in taming the many challenges encountered on the job site. This is Building Insights, construction tech in 90 seconds. First on our list is 4D planning.
It's a scheduling tool, and essentially what it does is ties the schedule, the construction schedule, into our model, and it gives you kind of a visual representation of that schedule.
The whole idea with 4D is that we can find areas where we can improve on the schedule.
Next up are drones.
So a relatively new technology that the industry is using is drones, and we're able to use drones for progress photos, for surface mapping, for inspections, and for verifying placed work.
It's time saving. It could take 10 to 15 minutes to fly that entire site, whereas before, to get that data, it might take you multiple days.
Third on our list is 3D laser scanning.
Laser scanning, it's kind of what it sounds like. You have a laser that shoots up and down, goes around 360 degrees. It essentially gives you a
very detailed, very accurate 3D image of a surrounding area.
And last up is augmented reality.
So augmented reality is really a way to bring that 3D model actually into the field.
So we can put the glasses on, load the model up, and we can actually look at where elements are going to be installed and understand if we need to move pipes, if we need to move ducts, if we're going to have any conflicts with the structure. It's a pretty powerful tool.
So that's what 90 seconds feels like. And I think I could probably even have done that video in 60 seconds. So remember, keep your videos short. It's going to pay off in the long run. Keep them tight and make sure they're communicating exactly what you want to in the minimum amount of time possible. All right, section 3 is general thoughts. So general thought number 2, video is not great for all things. What do I mean when I say that? Has anybody here assembled IKEA furniture before? You can just raise your hands if you have. Yeah? So that is an instance when I think video would be a terrible idea. The problem with having a video on how to assemble IKEA furniture is that you're going to be starting and stopping, rewinding and fast forwarding a lot. So anytime that you're going to be doing that, I would argue that having just a text document with photos would be better. So as you're going through and when you're trying to figure out, is this good? Is this a good thing for video? Just remember, it's not great for all things. Video is really great at general ideas. It's great at 40,000 foot view of something, but the more detailed you get on something, I think the worse video becomes. So general concepts, perfect. General ideas, amazing. But very, very specific things, I think video is not as good as just a text document or photos. General thought number 2, less is more, keep it simple. And this really is to piggyback off of the leave the stock transitions and effects alone in your video software. I'd much rather have a very clean, simple video than something that has this really complex, distracting thing in it. There's 2 things that I try and uncouple with my clients. So there's association with value and length, as in video runtime, and there's an association with value and complexity. They're not combined, right? They're not linked. having something that is short and simple and to the point is going to be more effective than something that's going to be long and complex. So remember, edit your videos and then keep them clean and simple, and you will be good. So this brings me to my next point, which is we are only as strong as our weakest links. So I have an example of a video that I did for a client a couple years ago, and I'm going to tell you the feedback that they gave me, and I'll show you why we're only as strong as the weakest links of anything that we produce.
Here's the story.
We came up with a solution that we thought would save PCL thousands of dollars.
Wait, let's start at the beginning. This person called this person, who called this person, who then met with this person. Their idea?
We were looking to speed up the removal of formwork shoring.
Well, the way we currently test concrete is very inefficient. We cast cylinders, we send it through a lab, and then we wait for the results. But by the time we get the results, the concrete strength has probably been achieved many days in advance.
Knowing this, Stephen Forrester from PCL Business Technology
Hello.
Reached out to Mike Gibbons.
I'm a project manager at LAX Midfield.
Yeah, this guy.
They came to us with this idea about embedding these sensors in the concrete as a proof of concept that they were working on. It's basically a fiber optic temperature sensor that we embed into the concrete. So we'll be able to see real-time cure, and that's driving the removal of our formwork shoring.
And that allows us to make decisions moving forward on the schedule that could potentially save thousands of dollars per day. And that adds up pretty quickly on a very large job.
This is Blaine Stearns.
I'm one of the guys that brings back ideas from the field and turns them into technology solutions.
He works in business technology at PCL.
So I think the important part of what happened on this project was we from BT were able to come in and help find a solution. There was a process that we could optimize with new technology where we didn't slow down our project teams.
And now we have a blueprint to implement this across all of PCL. If project teams or districts have technology or ideas that they'd like to try out, the business technology team is always there to help.
So, in short, unless you're selfish like Superintendent Aidan O'Kane,
I have a few ideas of my own, I'm keeping them to myself, but
the PCL Business Technology Group wants to work with you
to optimize all of our processes and make PCL more profitable.
PCL Business Technology, helping you solve tomorrow's problems today. I came up with that on my own, that line, solving tomorrow's problems today. That was me, right? That was my idea, wasn't it? Right, Mom? Mom?
So we had started production for that video in 2019, and we were planning on finishing it in spring of 2020. But something happened across the world, and we were not able to travel to finish it. So I was like, well, let's finish all of our interviews via Zoom. I know it's not ideal, but there's no other way we can do this unless we wait for the pandemic to be over. So we did that, right? They really liked the video, but I was on a call with them and they wanted to add some content to the video. And one of the guys said, oh yeah, we can add more. It's just a crappy Zoom video. It's just a crappy Zoom video, was the feedback that I got on this video, right? It is more than a crappy Zoom video, but all they saw was the weakest link of that production. And I'm judged on it. And I'll never forget that. I will never forget that because it's the truth. We are all judged on the weakest links of whatever we're doing. So just remember that as you're putting your videos together, we're judged on the weakest links. So make every part of it as good as it possibly can. General thought number 4, relatability. So to make this point, I want to do a very quick exercise with each of you. So either get a piece of paper and a pen or pull out the notepad on your computer, and I want you to jot down a few things. First, I want you to create a list of 3 to 5 of your company's values or interests. And I'll give you 20 seconds or so. All right, next, I want you to create another list, okay? So I want you to create a list of 3 to 5 of your personal values or interests. Did anybody write down the same thing for each of them?
They were pretty close.
What were they, Judy?
Or related. Oh, sorry, this is Sonora.
Oh, Sonora, what were they?
So let's see, for, I guess, company or professionally, unity, community, and support. Personal, confidence, sincerity, and hope.
Sure, those are pretty close. Did anybody else write down the same thing for each? Generally, the answer is no, right? Because company is interested in creating value or delivering on time or whatever, right? If you personally, you like fly fishing or knitting or exercising, whatever, so they generally don't match up. So the name of this section was relatability. And here's what I recommend everybody do. So tell the story of your company through the lens of something that you personally would be interested in or something that your audience would personally be interested in, right? Because hearing some company drone on about how advanced their engineering practices are, I don't care, right? I can't relate to it because it's not something that I really do in my life. So I'm going to give you a quick example, and this is the last video example of the presentation. So this is something that I made. It was about a search and rescue team, and this was the first 60 seconds of this video. And I want you to see if you can see how I attempted to make the subject of search and rescue relatable to an audience.
Art can be in anything. Whatever you're deeply invested in and that you love to do in life, being in that moment is what makes it the art. I am a graphic artist, and to me, if I can take something complicated and make it easy to understand, to me, that's a huge hurdle. My name is Margaret DeLuca. I'm a field active member with the Alpine Rescue Team.
People move to Colorado for our outdoors, for our recreational opportunities, and our population has boomed the last 5 to 10 years. With more people out in our backcountry, there are going to be more incidences of them getting injured or getting lost, and what we do is the art of rescue.
So the vast majority of people have never dealt with search and rescue. And hopefully none of us ever do. But for those who do have to deal with them, it is an amazing experience, right? So the challenge is relating an experience that most people have never had to something that they can relate to and care about. So we chose the theme of the art of rescue, and what they do is the art that they create is creating moments of happiness between lost ones and their family members. So that was basically the main story of the video. So relatability is so important. So when you're coming up with your video ideas, again, take whatever you want to talk about with your company and tell that story through the lens of something that you personally or you think your audience would personally find interesting. And I promise you, your videos will do a whole lot better. So here are the 5 takeaways. If I could get you to remember 5 things from this presentation, from this workshop, it would be these 5 things. Audio is the most important part of your video. Music, remember, get a nice lapel microphone, make sure that the audio quality of your video is good, and they will look and sound a whole lot better, a whole lot more professional. Make sure every part of the visual is telling the story you want it to. So this can be background choice, lighting, composition, all the things that we talked about, right? Make sure that every single part of your production is telling the message that you want it to tell, because sloppy, bad looking video, it communicates something to your audience and it doesn't communicate something good. So make sure that everything is good and buttoned up and is telling the story you want it to. Music can make or break your videos. Again, on this takeaway list, there are 2 things designated as the audio of your video. That's how important I think it is. So take time, make sure you find a music track that works, that tells the story that you want it to. Video is not a jack of all trades. No one did not use video. Again, video is great for a lot of things, but it's not great for everything. So as you're figuring out what video you want to make, think, would this be better as a text document or a photo series or whatever, but it's not great for all things. And finally, make sure your videos are relatable to your audience. Take the story of your company, tell it through the lens of something that you find personally interesting or that you think your audience will find personally interesting. And I promise you, your views will go up, people will resonate more, and ultimately you'll sell more product or service, so which is the goal. How many minutes of video are uploaded to YouTube every hour? Does anybody remember the answer to this question?
4-point-something million.
240, no.
All right, 240 billion. 45 million minutes of video are uploaded to every single hour. Why should I care about creating quality video content? It's because this number. So the better you can make your videos, the better they're going to be received, the easier your audience is going to be able to find them, and they're going to cut through all the noise that's uploaded every day so that your audience and your customers can find your message and so that they can hear your message. Anybody have any questions?
How